15th. May I have roll call, please?
Mayor Allen,
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Clayton,
Present.
Commissioner Kaler,
Present.
Commissioner Crowley,
Present.
and Commissioner Skidmore.
Present.
I would like to welcome everyone here in the audience as well as everyone watching or listening at home. We will begin today's meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by the invocation by Pastor Darren Story with Westminster Presbyterian Church.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Shall we enter in a moment of prayer? Gracious and loving God, we come before you today to begin this meeting of our City Commission. We thank you for the blessings you have given our city and our opportunity to serve. We pray for wisdom and discernment for all of our commissioners as they deliberate the matters before them. Guide their minds and their hearts to make just and righteous decisions that reflect the true needs of our citizens. Grant them the ability to listen with open hearts and to work together in harmony, even amidst disagreement. Help us all to set aside personal interests and to be guided by a spirit of cooperation and mutual respect for the common good. Bless our city staff and all who serve in the community. And may our work today be for the betterment of all. It is in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Thank you, Pastor.
Thank you.
We will move on to public comments. Do we have any registered?
We have none registered.
Okay. We'll go on to appointments, proclamations, recognitions, and nomination. We have a proclamation recognizing October as Domestic Violence Awareness Month. Domestic Violence Awareness Month focuses attention on victims of domestic violence and their children and promotes the support of shelters and community programs that serve them. Maggie Bornholt from the Willow Domestic Violence Center will accept the proclamation, which will be read by Commissioner Skidmore.
And the proclamation reads as follows. Whereas in the United States, 10 to 12 million adults experience domestic violence annually, with an average of 20 people every minute experiencing these heinous acts. And whereas in the state of Kansas, one domestic violence incident occurs every 23 minutes and one domestic violence murder occurs every 11 days, with one domestic violence arrest made every 46 minutes. And whereas the impact of domestic violence is felt not only by individuals and families, but also by communities and the nation as a whole. And whereas the city of Ottawa joins with others across the state of Kansas and nationwide in supporting domestic violence victims and survivors, the advocates and organizations who serve them, and holding offenders accountable in our community. Now, therefore, the governing body of the city of Ottawa, Kansas does hereby proclaim the month of October 2025 as Domestic Violence Awareness Month in recognition of the critical work being done by domestic violence advocates and allies in the service of the survivors and the victims they serve. We encourage all citizens to actively engage in the scheduled activities and events sponsored by the Willow Domestic Violence Center and other organizations toward working toward eradication of domestic violence, signed this 15th day of October 2025 by our Mayor, Emily Allen.
On behalf of the Willow, I want to thank the Commission and the citizens of Ottawa and Franklin County. As many of you know, the Willow Domestic Violence Center serves survivors of domestic violence and human trafficking in Jefferson, Franklin, and Douglas counties. And we are very happy to be able to do a lot of prevention work in those communities, and we could not do that without the support of the government, law enforcement, and other community partners, as well as the citizens. So thank you very much.
Thank you. We next have a proclamation recognizing October 15th as Arbor Day. Arbor Day highlights the importance of trees in reducing erosion, moderating temperatures, improving air quality, and enhancing property values and community vitality. Citizens are encouraged to celebrate Arbor Day and support efforts to protect and plant trees for future generations. Greg Morrow will accept the proclamation, which will be read by Mayor Pro Tem Clayton.
The proclamation reads as follows. Whereas in 1872, J. Sterling Morton proposed to the Nebraska Board of Agriculture that a special day be set aside for the planting of trees. And whereas this holiday, called Arbor Day, was first observed with the planting of more than 1 million trees in Nebraska. And whereas Arbor Day is now observed throughout the nation and the world. And whereas trees can reduce the erosion of our precious topsoil by wind and water, cut heating and cooling costs, moderate the temperature, clean the air, produce oxygen, and help provide habitat for wildlife. And whereas trees are a renewable resource giving us paper, wood for our homes, fuel for our fires, and countless other wood products. And whereas trees in our city increase property values, enhance the economic vitality of business areas, and beautify our community. And whereas trees, wherever they are planted, are a source of joy and spiritual renewal. Now, therefore, the governing body of the City of Ottawa, Kansas, does hereby proclaim October 15th, 2025 as Arbor Day in the City of Ottawa and urges all citizens to celebrate Arbor Day and to support efforts to protect our trees and woodlands, and urges all citizens to plant trees to gladden the heart and promote the well-being of this and future generations. Signed, this 15th day of October 2025 by our Mayor, Emily Allen.
Yeah, just wanted to say thank you for this, and we are doing this in conjunction with renewing our Tree City USA. So tomorrow at Forest Park, at the entrance of the dog park, we will be planting a tree at 10 a.m. So if anyone is interested in coming out for that, that's what we will be doing. So, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next we will have a proclamation recognizing October 15th, 2025 as Support Your Local Chamber of Commerce Day. This proclamation acknowledges the Ottawa Area Chamber of Commerce for over a century of leadership, advocacy, and service to more than 300 businesses and organizations. Rylan Miller from the Ottawa Area Chamber of Commerce will accept the proclamation, which will be read by Commissioner Crowley.
And the proclamation reads as follows. Whereas chambers of commerce strive to address the community's top challenges and greatest opportunities through bold leadership and innovative problem solving. And whereas chambers of commerce foster stronger, more vibrant communities by advocating for priorities to promote economic prosperity, enhance quality of life, and create access to meaningful employment and opportunity for all residents. And whereas chambers of commerce are champions of communities, serving as trusted resources for businesses, residents, and other stakeholders. And whereas chambers of commerce create catalytic community partnerships to build resilient economies and promote community-wide prosperity. And whereas the Ottawa Area Chamber of Commerce has served the community for over 100 years and today represents more than 300 businesses and organizations, advancing Ottawa and Franklin County through leadership programs, community-wide events, opportunities for connection, and advocacy that supports the growth and vitality of our city and region. Now, therefore, the governing body of the City of Ottawa, Kansas does hereby proclaim October 15, 2025 as Support Your Local Chamber of Commerce Day, and encourages all residents to learn more about the Ottawa Area Chamber of Commerce, celebrate its impacts, and support the businesses and organizations that make our community thrive. Signed this 15th day of October 2025 by our Mayor, Emily Allen.
I just wanted to say thank you to the City of Ottawa for being fantastic partners. Really, the Chamber of Commerce wouldn't be able to do what it does without the many businesses, organizations, and citizens that make it up. And so very blessed to be able to lead this history organization, one that's been standing for a long time and doing great work in that amount of time. And I look forward to continuing that work with, again, the support of the City of Ottawa. So thank you for this recognition and look forward to many more years of success. So.
Yeah, thank you, Ryland and Maggie and Greg, for all that you do for your organizations and for us as well. So we appreciate you all. We will next move on to the consent agenda, which includes minutes from October 1st, 2025 regular meeting and the agenda approval.
Motion to approve.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye. All opposed? Motion carries. At this time, I'd like to give the commissioners a chance to declare any conflict or communication they've had that might influence their ability to consider today's issues impartially. Seeing none, we will skip over unfinished business with nothing there. New business, we'll start with item 11A.
Tree inventory report / IRA grant announcement.
City Clerk Sherman and Blaine Strobel from Kansas Forestry will present on this. Blaine Strobel with the Kansas Forest Service will present the results of the city's tree inventory and announce the IRA grant award.
Perfect. Good morning, Mayor and Commissioners. In 2024, the Kansas Forest Service, under the leadership of Blaine Strobel, Northeast District Forester, completed a citywide tree inventory of Ottawa's publicly owned trees. This was the first comprehensive inventory in more than a decade, and it gave us a much-needed snapshot of the health, species diversification, and long-term need of our urban forests. More than 6,200 trees were assessed, and the data collected will help inform future decisions about removals, maintenance, replanting, and public safety. At this time, I'd like to welcome Blaine Strobel to the podium to present the findings and walk us through the highlights of the report.
All right. Well, thank you for having me here. As Melissa said, my name is Blaine Strobel with the Kansas Forest Service, Northeast District Forester. And what we did is, as she mentioned, we did a complete public tree inventory last summer. And what that consisted of is all trees within 15 feet of the curb line, as well as all public parks, public spaces, downtown areas, pretty much anything that's publicly accessible. Through this was completely done free of charge through the Kansas Forest Service. It was no charge to the city, and we basically just did this to try and to help increase the canopy, as well as improve the health of the canopy throughout Ottawa, as well as the state as a whole. So this inventory was done one of 30 throughout the state over the last 2 years. And we'll kind of dive in a little bit and kind of go over the findings that we had. There's a lot of information here, so we'll just kind of skim through it pretty quick, but we'll hit on some of the highlights. So the very first page that we come up to here just shows a very generalized ecological benefit of the trees that we were able to record. The numbers to really focus on here are the rain-off avoided and rainfall intercepted, as well as carbon storage and carbon sequestered. These are numbers that really go to show how important the tree canopy is to the community of Ottawa. And again, just keeping in mind that these are only the trees on public spaces. So even spreading out into private homeowner residences, the benefits would only increase from there. Land use, we were able to, every tree that we collected, we were able to collect information as far as what the land use was, whether it be urban, residential, park, industrial, as well as the condition of the tree, the size of the tree, the species of the tree, and anything else that we found fitting to record. So looking here, we can see the land use, largely residential, as assumed based off of the parameters of the inventory. 15 feet off of the curb line includes a lot of private homeowners, but we did see a large number of park trees, which is kind of out of the ordinary for what we see typically in Northeast Kansas as well as the rest of the state. Ottawa has a large percentage of trees in park spaces, which is great. That goes to show that the community really does want to increase those public use spaces. And so maintaining those trees and making sure that they're in good working order is something to highlight going forward. So of the 6,200 trees that we recorded, we only found about 267 that were labeled for removal. These are trees that were labeled as either hazardous, dead, or dying. And that really only comes up to be about 4.3% of your entire canopy, which is a really good number to be looking at. Of course, a good step in the right direction would be to lower that number, continually trying to remove trees to get that number even lower throughout the year. This can be done over the next 5 to 10 years. It's not something that can be done overnight, nor is it expected to. So moving that number down lower, while anticipating additional trees moving down into that needing to be removed category, is something just to be mindful of going forward. So next we'll talk about diversity. And we have a rule as foresters that we like to go by, which is the 10-20-30 rule, meaning that 10%, no more than 10% of one species, 20% of one genus, and 30% of one family. Throughout Ottawa, we only had 2 species that exceeded that 10% recommendation, and those were pin oak and silver maple. This is very, very common across the state. We see this most places that we've gone and inventoried, but this is something to be mindful of, as well as just, being aware that even on the pin oak alone, we're looking at 14% of the tree population, and beings that oak genus, we don't want to be any above 20% of that. The pin oaks alone are at 14%. So being mindful of what you guys have and what to promote as far as plantings go when you're doing these Arbor Day plantings, as well as providing recommendations to homeowners as to what trees to plant, using this information to provide recommendations as well as things not to plant, would be advised. So here we can see the actual graph that shows the information a little bit better. Other than, like I said, the silver maple and the pin oak, really the distribution is pretty good throughout the remainder of the species list. And then continuing on with that 10-20-30 rule, talking about genus, as I said, maple and oak both exceed the recommended genus percentage of 20%. So if we go to the next slide here, we can see trying to avoid planting any more oaks or maples would be something I would highly recommend. The reason behind this is for disease, infection, different things like that may come in and wipe out a certain species. A great example would be the emerald ash borer that's been targeting ash trees. I've seen communities across the state that have had 20% of their canopy wiped out. So that's part of why the diversity aspect of things is so important. And so keeping that in mind, going forward, looking at some of those more untraditional species, untraditional genuses, and try to increase the diversity of the canopy throughout Ottawa would be very beneficial going forward. So the overall condition we'll dive into here. Like I said, we only had 267 dead and dying trees, which is a pretty good number based on the number of trees that we were able to record. Overall, the majority of the canopy was rated under the fair condition classification, followed by good, followed by poor, followed by dead and dying. We really would rather see a larger percentage of good trees followed by fair and so on, so forth. But this is not something to be embarrassed by at all, especially based off the amount of trees that you have with the staffing and resources available. This is numbers that we can work with. My recommendation on this would be try to do as much preventative maintenance as possible, trying to increase those good trees, moving those fair classifications up into a good classification, move the poors up into the fairs, and so on and so forth, as well as removing those dead and dying trees. Looking at species with most mortality, we can see that a vast majority of the species that are dead are Siberian elms. This is, again, very common throughout the entire state. What we've seen and what we've found is Siberian elms, pin oaks, and silver maples have just been severely overplanted, 75 years ago. And this is just kind of the end of the life cycle for them. They're not great trees. They have poor branching structure. They have very bad defects going forward. Trying to get rid of some of those Siberian elms, phasing out some of those, removing some of the larger, more dangerous ones would be something to prioritize going forward. Now, overall size. This is kind of important to think about when we're talking about the overall condition of the canopy. What we classify as young trees is something that falls in the 0 to 6, or newly planted trees would be 0 to 6 inches. This is a measurement that we take. It's called DBH, and what that is the diameter at breast height, which is the diameter of the tree 4.5 feet off of the ground. And those newly planted trees are the 0 to 6 inches. We call young trees. 6 to 12 inches. Actively growing are 12 to 24. Mature is 24 to 30. And then overly mature is greater than 30 inches. Now, looking at this data, what we can see is that Ottawa does have an excess of what we would classify as overly mature trees. These are trees that are larger than 30 inches. Most of the time, not always, but a lot of times these trees tend to be on their way out. They tend to be past the point of maturity. They're starting to show signs of decline, rot, poor branching. And so these are trees that we like to look at as probably not going to be there in the next 10 to 15 years. Looking at that percentage there, that shows about 25% of the canopy is what we would call in danger. Now, on the reverse side of that, we like to correlate the overly mature trees with the newly planted trees and young trees, which unfortunately, even all trees less than 12 inches, we're only sitting at about 17, 18%, which still is going to come up short of that overall 25.6% overly mature. So with that, really focusing on replanting, trying to get more trees in the ground. I know space can be an issue sometimes, and that's where we like to implement what we call shadow planting on areas that have these large, overly mature trees that are on their way out. Use those as planting locations, get the new trees established, and then once those larger trees start to fail in the next 10, 15 years, that younger tree is right there and can take the spot of that older tree. That would be probably my number one recommendation for the city of Ottawa, is just continue to keep planting trees, remove the dead and dying. That will also increase safety throughout the community, especially in your parks and public right of ways, getting those dead and dying trees removed. So finally, on here, we can see the species by size. On the very first category there, we have pin oaks, and the vast majority of them are over 30 inches. Again, this goes back to what I was saying earlier about, 60, 70 years ago, pin oaks were planted very, very heavily. Unfortunately, we are just kind of to the point where we're seeing a lot of pin oaks aging out. And that's where we're starting to see some decline. We're starting to see some deterioration in some of those species. So that's also good information to look at and pay attention to, knowing that there's a good chance that in the next several years, those pin oaks and silver maples both are going to starting to show signs of deterioration and need to be scheduled for removal. So that kind of covers the gist of it. In addition to this all charts report, we also have what we call a management recommendation page that we are in the process of working with the city on, trying to come up with what is going to be the most beneficial plan of attack, I guess we could say, for the next 5 to 10 years, based on your resources, based on our resources. How can we provide a management plan for you in order to increase the life of the canopy and really just improve it overall. And then alongside that as well, All of the inventory data that we did, we collected all these trees via GPS coordinates. We actually spent, I think, about 3 days here walking around, walking up to each tree and GPS marking each tree on a tablet. And then we have that software as well that we are able to share with the community. And you guys are able to look at that, see the software, see all the different points, filter out what you want to see, and really access the software that way as well. So it's a really, really useful tool. And going forward, I think between the information that we've collected as well as the information that we're able to give you, with a further relationship, we'd love to be able to see Ottawa's canopy improve over in the next couple of years. So is there any questions?
Yeah, I've got a couple here. First of all, thank you for all that. I'm surprised you got it done in 3 days. I thought you were here for 3 months or so to get all that numbers, but appreciate that. You mentioned the emerald ash borer. Did you see any evidence of that here?
So emerald ash borer it has been confirmed here. Looking back at the species list, I don't believe we saw many. Yeah, there was 418 ash species that we recorded. And though, EAB, it's not necessarily a matter of if it's going to be here. It's a matter of when it's going to be here. It's working across the state from east to west. I'm pretty positive it has been detected in this county. And so even if you're not seeing signs of it yet, it will be here. Unfortunately with EAB, there's really not anything that you can do about it. It's one of those things kind of like Dutch elm disease back in the 50s. That's just going to come in and kind of wipe out that percentage of trees. So that is something to keep in mind looking at the species composition here over the next 5 to 10 years. Just looking at ash trees alone, we can suspect probably 6 to 7% of your entire canopy is going to get wiped out. So that's also something to keep in mind as far as budgeting goes, as far as resources go, and as far as replantings go.
No, that's what I was going to ask about the Dutch elm. I remember that actually, but let's go on. Second question I had too on page 18, it talks about the tree conditions, fair and good and poor. So how can we make a fair tree become a good tree?
Yeah, so let me dive into that a little bit more. I might have skipped over that. So how we classified those, and those condition classes are obviously they vary a little bit. What I'm going to classify, I may classify something a little bit more strict than somebody else. We did when we completed this inventory. I led the inventory, but we also had a team of technicians come out with us. And so it was not the same person recording the condition for all trees. So with that, there may be some fluctuation. I don't think by any means there's any drastic difference, but kind of how we classified them is a good tree is a tree that's a good representation of the species that you could walk away from for 5 years and not touch. You could come back in 5 years, and at that point you might need to do a little pruning, you might need to do a little cleanup, but for the most part you could walk up to that tree, say, yep, that's exactly how it's supposed to look, and walk away for 5 years. Fair trees are very, very similar. They don't have any structural defects. They're good trees. They may just have a little bit more dead wood that needs to be removed. They may just need a little bit more help, a little bit more pruning. And those trees are a lot easier to go up into the good category than the ones that are poor. Poor are obviously going to be that next step down. Those are the ones that we kind of classify as they're not necessarily unsavable, but it would require a lot of work to do so. It would be a long-term investment over multiple years of pruning, possible injections, and some of them may just be to the point where they're not going to make it back. And then obviously the dead and dying are those that have either already died or showing drastic signs that they're not going to make it another year or two.
That's good. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you again for being here. Like, Commissioner said, the amount of work that went into this is just pretty drastic. So thanks for all of your guys' work. Do you have any concerns looking at, the mortality for elms between Siberian and American elms are like 60%? Do you see anything, with that? I know we've had Dutch elm disease, the ash borer. Is there anything kind of specifically causing elms to maybe be in that kind of category for the mortality?
So looking back at I believe I've got one in here, and if not, I can run a report on it as well. Oh yeah, there we go. Species with more, yeah, the most mortality between American elm and Siberian elm, 50%. So that is only 50% of the trees that are dead. That's not 50% of the entire species.
Yeah.
So that's just showing a highlight of again, the percentage of dead trees are those Siberian elms and American elms. But then again, going back, and something to keep in mind is looking back at those most common species. Just your Siberian elms and American elms alone make up 11% of your canopy. And I think a lot of what we're seeing here is just the Siberian elms that we've seen here as well as anywhere. It's kind of a weed tree. I mean, they produce volunteers very, very easily. Homeowners tend to just leave them. They say a free tree's a good tree, and then they tend to just forget about them. And so a lot of what we see as far as Siberian elms go is just decline due to poor maintenance, wrong tree, wrong place, trees that are put up against foundations of houses, trees that are put right up against the curb line. And chances are people didn't plant them. And so what we're seeing is really just a surplus of that as far as the Siberian elms go. The American elms, I can't speak for anything in particular that may be affecting them, other than just the fact that they may just be old and hitting that point of maturity where they're kind of starting to die out. Siberian elms, though, again, across the state, numbers look very, very similar. So I don't think it's anything in particular other than the fact that it's just a bad tree.
Thank you.
You had mentioned we can do some different search criteria and things on this. So we will be able to focus on, say, if we select the dead and dying, we can see exactly where those trees are located, basically on a map.
Yes, yes, absolutely. And this software that we have, this is a software that the Kansas Forest Service, it's called Tree Plotter. And it's a software that we purchased and we have a contract with for 3 years. The data is ours. We have the data. We're able to distribute the data however we want. And then we are able to, like I said, give you guys access to go in and look at this data and filter it and focus it however you want. I'm more than happy to give you guys that data along with kind of an instruction sheet on how to use that, how to operate it and navigate it. And what you are able to do is exactly like you said. If you want to look at your ash trees and say, hey, we've got EAB coming through here, we really need to get rid of our ash trees. You can actually filter out the ash trees and then print off a list. Like I said, beings that we went through and GPS recorded each tree. Each tree has an address associated with it. So you could actually go through, filter your ash trees, and then prioritize from there and say, we want to get rid of our dead trees first, and then our poor trees, and then our fair trees, and create a list with addresses that you could hand to Public Works. You could hand to a contractor and say, here you go. This is where they are. This is how big they are. This is the condition of them. And then as well as in this software, you can click on a specific tree and it'll automatically link it with Google Street View. And so you can actually click on that tree, click on Street View, and see exactly what the contractor or Public Works staff is getting into.
That sounds like it's really great
Yeah.
information.
Yeah.
It probably saves our staff a ton of time going around and trying to find
Yeah.
those dead trees. So that's.
I just had one more question. You sound like you're very educated. Where'd you go to school?
So I went to Kansas State University.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's, yeah.
It's a leading
That was a
question.
setup.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
leading the witness.
Any other questions? Okay, yep, great.
Thank you. So yeah, with that being said, City Clerk, Melissa Sherman, Works Director, DJ Welsh, and myself all work together very, very hard, and we're able to submit a request for the IRA grant, which is the Inflation and Reduction Act, through the Community Forest Grant Program. We were fortunate enough to be awarded this year $97,430. So that money is to be used within the CGEST area, which is the Climate and Economic Justice Screening Tool. That does include Forest Park. So with that being said, the majority of the work will be done there. We are going to remove 12 trees that would be in the hazardous, so not necessarily that they are dead, but some are dying and have some real structural problems. With that, every tree that we remove, we need to do two to replace that. So a 2-to-1 ratio. So we're going to plant 25 trees. And then all of this work is going to be done to improve safety, walkability, and environmental comfort. And with this being said, too, having all of this information has been really good because it's going to affect our decision-making in the future with what trees that we do plant. And so we're very fortunate and very happy to work with Blaine on this. And so thank you. And it's very good news for our community. So.
Thank you both for all your work, and I'm sure City Clerk Sherman had a part in that as well. So thank you all for getting that grant, and sounds like we'll really be moving forward and making progress on those trees. So
Greg, you said we will remove. We will have them removed, right? This
Yep.
will be bid out.
Yep. So
Okay.
that was part of that money is we got an initial estimate from a contractor. And so then once we move forward, we will actually resubmit all of that and make sure that we're getting the right money. But yes, so all of this work essentially minimal will be on city staff. So the majority of that will be contracted. There will be some stuff I will have to inspect the work, and then also the forestry service will come in behind and do an inspection too. But like I said, that's removal. So what we have planned for Forest Park, that's removal, stump grinding, haul off, and then also I'm very excited for this part is a professional trim throughout the whole park. So we always do a canopy raise and trim what we can. But as you know, in Forest Park, there's like over 600 trees. So there's a lot of work to be done. So this is a good opportunity for that to take place and really make a safe environment where we have these large events and a lot of people gather there. So very excited.
Thank you.
Greg, two questions. One on that with, whoever we hire and they do the haul off, do you know typically what they do? Just kind of thinking these are really large mature trees, like firewood is an ample resource of those to members of the community who heat their homes, who do how many other things. Is that typically just dropped at Second Street? Would there be a way that potentially could be available for some kind of secondary use once that tree is cut down for members of the community to come grab firewood, to come cut it up themselves, whatever they need to do, or how something like that might work?
Right. So in the past, what we've done when we have removed trees is we do save the trunks, the stuff that would actually make good firewood. We've set it off to the side, and Public Works has then cut and split firewood, and it has been sold to the community. So with something like that on this end, we could definitely put something in there to where we would want to save that. We'd still probably have to lean more, I would assume, on that side versus just letting people run chainsaws inside of our park. But definitely we could make that a part of it, is that the trunk of the tree would be saved, and Public Works could probably do something like that. The rest of it then would be chipped, and actually on something like this, if they didn't want it, we would probably then put the same chip pile out at Second Street, which we do provide free to the public as well. So all of those resources then would essentially go back in to our community. So
Thank you.
Second Street's free to the public, not contractors. though,
Correct.
Just to be
Yep.
sure.
Yep. So dumping at Second Street, that has been kind of a big undertaking for the Public Works street side. So yes, so that is available for dumping for the public, not for commercial contractors whatsoever. And then the chips out there are also now free and available to the public. The city used to sell that, but that is free and open to the public in the same location.
Thank you.
So.
And on the trees that we plant, do we have kind of varying sizes that we plant? Do we plant 3-inch? Do we kind of have a size that we typically throw in?
Yep. So what city staff has done has essentially been 3-inch and less, and that's mostly because of what we can manage for the resources that we have. I know there has been instances in the past before me that they have planted larger diameter trees, but they're a lot of work for what we have and resources to do so. So
Because we don't have a spade, do we?
No, we don't. Yep. So
I think the partners picker at least 1.5 inch.
Okay.
So at 1.5 inch.
Any other questions? Okay, well, thank you both.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We will next move on to item 11B.
2025 Grant Activity Report.
City Clerk Sherman will provide a report on the 2025 grant activity.
Thank you. Good morning again. Today, I'm providing an update on the City of Ottawa's 2025 grant activity through September 30th. This is a receive and file, so no formal action is needed, but I hope it gives a good overview of our continued use of grants as a strategic funding tool. As you know, grants allow the city to address key community needs, many of which would be otherwise unfunded. It also helps offset operating and capital costs in areas like infrastructure, public safety, and quality of life initiatives. While the City of Ottawa has used grants for decades, our efforts over the past few years have been more coordinated and intentional. While we've done a great job of informing the Commission about individual grant-funded projects, we now want to provide a broader overview of all current grant activity to give us a more comprehensive picture of our efforts and impact. Since January 2022, staff across multiple departments have submitted more than 50 grant applications, resulting in more than $11.7 million in awarded funding. This includes water, infrastructure, hazard mitigation, trail planning, streets improvement, and more. This chart here talks about all of our awarded funding. So from January to September 2025, we've had general operating support from the OMA. We've had a couple of Walmart fire grants. We have a STEP KDOT program for their police department, our Kansas forestry, as well as pathways initiatives. So I would like to note on the pathway initiatives that we are currently working on those. Those are ones for an incubator kitchen for OMA and a trails project. There's a $50,000 max. We haven't determined the project yet, so we don't know what that funding will be. But we did hear that the trail also could be awarded up to a $50,000 max as well. So we're working right now on having some listening sessions with our community members after we determined a population of focus to see what trails in our area and get feedback. We'll then provide that to Blue Cross and Blue Shield and work on some other initiatives. In a couple of weeks, you will be hearing more about the incubator kitchen and the pathways. Tiffany Evans will be here to present that information and to give you some more on our future plans for that. This chart here shows the breakdown of pending grant applications by funding source. As of September 30th, we have just over 1.2 million in applications still under review. Of that, 870,000 come from state and federal sources, reflecting our continued pursuit of competitive public grant programs for infrastructure, hazard mitigation, and quality of life. The remaining 327,000 comes from private foundations, which often support community wellness, engagement, arts, and cultural programming. We anticipate decisions on several of these applications in the upcoming months and will provide updates as funding outcomes are confirmed. This slide breaks down our pending grant applications by department, giving a sense of where the city's current funding needs and opportunities are concentrated. The largest share of pending requests is in the streets program, which total just under 500,000, which includes safety, accessibility, and infrastructure improvements. The OMA follows closely with just over 350,000 in applications, focusing on facility upgrades and community engagement programming. The water department had just over 200,000 in applications pending, and the fire and electric have small but strategic requests under review as well. The final chart captures our cumulative grant activity over the past 4 years, from January 2022 to September 2025. During that time, the city has submitted over $25.9 million in grant requests across all departments and initiatives. Of that total, we've been awarded $11.78 million, representing a significant return on investment for the time and coordination involved in developing and managing these applications. This also reflects our willingness to pursue competitive opportunities that align with the city's strategic priorities, even when the odds are long. Many of the grants we've applied for, particularly on the federal level, are highly competitive. And even when we're not selected, the process positions us for future rounds or alternative funding sources. City staff is committed to using every available tool to meet the community needs while being good stewards of local resources. The grant activity you see here is a reflection of that commitment, leveraging external funding to advance Ottawa's priorities without placing the full financial burden on local taxpayers. All applications follow applicable federal and state requirements, including procurement and audit standards. Where required, local match commitments have been identified in department budgets and through in-kind support before any application is submitted. At this time, there are no legal concerns tied to any of our current grant activity. Looking ahead, we are expecting updates on several pending applications in Q4. A full year-end report will be presented in early 2026 to summarize awarded funds and project outcomes. Today, we do have a special guest with us. We have Key Russell, a Baker University student who's been interning for the Pathways Committee and has spent time assisting the city with grant applications. He's been so great, has sat in my office and listened to me talk about grants for hours, has assisted us with listening sessions on our pathways, and has just been there to provide feedback. And so I just wanted to welcome him and appreciate him being here today. As I wrap up, I'd also like to thank all of the city departments and our Kansas Infrastructure Hub consultant, Kenda Fainzo, along with our community support partners. This grant process is really a collaboration effort. It's department heads. We partnered with the county on a federal grant report, partnered with COF and ECAN and all of our community partners to further the mission. And so I think what I really appreciate is just everybody's willingness to come to the table and help us be able to further our objectives in Ottawa through grant funding. And so with that, I would stand for any questions that you might have.
I'm sure all of those departments would probably thank you right back because I mean, this is a lot of work that you put into this. And I know I've heard from community partners as well that you've done an amazing job at this. So we really appreciate all the work you put into that.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you as well to both of you guys for all the work. 50 applications, and you can see the dollar amount that has come into the community and potentially has come in. On grants, if there are grants that, someone sees or, what's the best kind of avenue to maybe get it in front of the city in case maybe we don't know about it, even if it's a smaller $5,000-$10,000 grant, because they kind of pop up everywhere.
They do, and they come up quick.
Yeah, the best avenue to maybe get that in front of us if someone sees something like that.
Absolutely. I would say email cityclerk@ottawaks.gov. Give us a call, 229-3600. Ask for the city clerk. We will take all that information. We are constantly scouring. I usually average about 3 to 4 webinars a week on just upcoming grant opportunities, but I am always looking for that. If it's a private foundation or just you see an opportunity that you think will align, send it over to us. We'd love to have that conversation and explore if it's a great opportunity for us.
Thank you. And this year, did we apply at all for the Safe Routes to Schools? I know I saw 11th Street sidewalk was with the KDOT cost share. And just curious, because I know we have other areas that I think around schools, would be a good potential as well to kind of look into that. And I think Wellsville got one, I think this year or last year.
Yeah. So with that, we're working on that. That's one of our that we're really want to be able to address. We needed to collect some data and to get some more information, and we weren't really aligned during this last cycle to make a really competitive application. And so that is on our goal right now. And that's on one that we're working on constantly to try to figure out what would be the best application or use of those funds. So yes, that is on our radar. We definitely want to apply, just trying to make sure we have the best application.
Thank you.
And Melissa, you've been with us for how long as clerk?
February will be 5 years.
5 years. Now just look at that 2022 when we saw that amount of grants we've received from then to now 11.8 million. I don't know what we're paying you, but I'm guessing we're getting a good rate of return on that investment. So I agree too. I also want to thank you for your hard work and dedication. And we were just up in Overland Park here last week, talking a lot of different cities, and I know they request grants, and I went to a grant writing. Part of it was grant writing seminar. And I'm just really impressed with our results here compared to other cities our size we're doing. So I'm really happy and proud to have you on our clerk.
Well,
as
thank you.
clerk.
Like I said, it takes a team effort, and
It's-
they are so great every time I call them or need information and data. So I definitely appreciate all
Yeah,
staff efforts.
That's good to hear. Yeah.
And please make sure that we don't line item cut the magic ink that you use, getting these across the line, please.
Definitely years of experience.
Any other questions? Okay, Thank you. We'll move on to item 11C.
Consider resolution revising fees for open record requests.
The governing body will consider a resolution updating fees for open records requests to align with the recent legislative changes and the city's adopted policies. And we have City Clerk Sherman.
Me again. All right. And this agenda item is a proposed update to the city's open records fee structure to align with recent changes in the Kansas law and guidance from the Attorney General. Public access to records is the cornerstone of transparent local government. However, responding to Kansas open records requests, particularly large or complex ones, often requires significant staff time and city resources. This update is intended to ensure our fee structure is legally compliant, reasonable for the public, and reflect on the actual costs associated with fulfilling requests, while also preventing undue burden on staff or taxpayer-funded operations. This current policy, resolution number 1408-07, was adopted in 2007. It allowed us to charge for staff time based on full wages and benefits, applied a 25-cent per page flat fee for copies, and required prepayment for requests estimated to be over $25. The Kansas legislation recently passed House Bill 2134, which became effective July 1st, 2025, and it sets a new uniform standard for how cities charge fees. Our current resolution is now outdated and must be replaced to comply with state law and guidance from the Attorney General's office. The proposed resolution includes the following key updates. Staff time will be billed at the hourly rate of the lowest paid qualified employee, excluding benefits. Per page copy fees are no longer fixed. Instead, we'll charge actual costs for materials like paper and toner. Electronic records will no longer have a per page fee, but staff time will be billed. Special formats like maps, oversized documents will be charged at the actual rate of production. Prepayments will still be required for estimates over $25, but at the end of it, we will reconcile that, and any underages or overages we will return. And finally, the resolution does give the city clerk or the city manager the ability to waive or reduce fees if releasing the record is in the interest of public or the interest of the city. This resolution helps ensure that we recover actual cost rather than subsidizing public record requests with general fund dollars. It promotes fairness and consistency in how we respond to the request. The city attorney has reviewed the proposed resolution and approved it as to form. And at this time, we're recommending that the City Commission consider passing the resolution, or you could defer it to a future meeting or direct staff to prepare an alternative resolution for consideration. And I would stand for any questions.
Melissa, can you go back a couple slides, please?
Yep.
Thank you. City Attorney, can you explain to me what allowing the city manager or city clerk to waive or reduce fees if releasing the record is in the public interest or the interest of the city would entail?
There are times when data is being collected, for example, by an academic institution to perform a study that might be of use to the city or cities generally. That would be an example of something in the public interest. In the interest of the city may be a situation where either it's high conflict or a tragic event has occurred, and you wouldn't want to charge, say, for example, say there was a death investigation. You may not want to charge records in that case out of a sense of decency. And that might be in the city's interest in that case to provide those records without cost. So those are a couple examples.
Thank you. I appreciate those examples. I just worry that, we could have an individual come up and be upset about the fact that they, are getting charged, whereas another individual didn't. So I appreciate those examples because those are really good examples as opposed to somebody just showing up and wanting a basic information.
I will tell you that we are asked frequently by requesters, particularly some large out-of-state conglomerations. There's been a proliferation of these groups that want, say, employee salary data or every purchase order that the city has had over the last year. And they ask for those fees to be waived because they claim that's in the public interest, so that they can compile statistical information and profiles for their clients. We typically deny that. It is very rare that we waive the fees on an open records because that's essentially saying the rest of the public should cover the expense of that. But typically the public interest exception is one that's asked for. I recommended in this case that the interest of the city exception be added simply because there may be times that we can't foresee right now where you may want to do that, but certainly we always strive to be consistent and fair in the application of those exceptions. And for the most part, we charge everybody who asks.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Melissa, on the getting rid of the flat page fee for the actual cost of paper toner, is that, we figure the cost of toner, how many prints go through a copy? Like, do you know what that metric looks like? Because that just,
Yeah,
it gets really convoluted thinking of, years I've worked in IT, trying to tie the cost of toner, reams of paper to what each individual piece of paper truly costs.
so a lot of our requests are electronic.
Okay.
We don't see a lot of paper. In that instance, we don't have a cost for that yet. We haven't drilled down into that because it's going to be ever changing. Price of paper changes, our toner changes. And so what we would really do if we had a huge request that was going to need to be printed out, for one, we need to call them and have a conversation to see how we could maybe reduce that. Is there stuff you can come in and look at that we already have existing so we wouldn't have to print that stuff off? So we have some alternatives. We don't have that metric, but if we did have a request, we would have to figure that in and calculate that beforehand. But we try to give them alternative options and not, we're not trying to outcharge a customer. We want to get that down as low as possible, but all while making sure that we're recovering our fees. And so it's a balancing act. Sometimes people will come in and do an inspection of records where we'll sit and watch them look at the records and they can take pictures or do whatever they need to at that point.
On electronic ones, do you guys typically email attachments? Is it a Dropbox link that they can then download stuff? Is it flash drives? Kind of how do they acquire it digitally if they kind of do that as well?
If it's short and sweet, a small document that we can email, we email those over. A lot of the times when you get into neighborhood and community services, those documents are larger. So we'll put those on a flash drive where we then charge the customer for that flash drive. But usually 90% of those are just email overs for them to be able to look at those documents.
Thank you.
Any other questions? How would we like to proceed?
I'll make the motion. We approve item 11C.
Okay,
I'll second.
okay. Any further discussion? May I have roll call vote, please?
How do you vote, Commissioner Taylor?
Yes.
Commissioner Crowley?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Clayton?
Yes.
Commissioner Skidmore?
Yes.
And Mayor Allen?
And I vote yes, motion carries. Thank you. Next, we'll move on to comments by our city manager.
Thank you, commissioners. Just a couple of highlights. We'll keep it brief. Want to share and say thank you to everyone who turned out for the 24th annual 9/11 remembrance. And thank you to Commissioner Clayton for his words addressing the group, and to the school children who were present from one of the nearby parochial schools that came by to attend. Just some highlights of the past week, and you may notice that as we ramp up for the 11th day of the 11th hour, Veterans Day on November 11th, our banners are up. Also seeing some recent street maintenance activities there with an overlay, and this may look familiar to Mayor Allen, as this came in through her via citizen for fallen debris in the roadway that we promptly removed. Thank you to our public works crews for that. And then, PD's ever continuous review and completion of policy review and updates to stay current. Want to highlight that we show there a water leak, and what you might see there in the right-hand corner is a water valve. So that's what that's reflecting there from that water distribution system repair. These are the newest members of the city team. We've got Kyle Johnson in facilities maintenance, so you may see him around City Hall here. We've got Jason Eklund, who is our property improvement partner, who's assisting our neighborhoods and specific individual property owners with environmental and blight conditions. And he comes to us with a 30-year military career and retired and lives in the area. So we're grateful for having him. And then we've got Jeff Berkdahl, who has joined our Parks Department, and Kyler Guileful, who is in our Streets Department. And we've got some upcoming community events we'd like folks, if they're available, to look at attending. We've got the Candidates Forum at City Hall, which will also be streamed. If you're into the spirit, pardon the pun, of the season, we have our OMA Paranormal Investigation with tickets now on sale for Friday, November 24th at 8 p.m. And then we'll have our Veterans Day Parade on Saturday, November 8th, starting at 10:45. So come out downtown, and it's always a good turnout, and look forward to seeing everyone around town. And we are currently hiring for 2 positions, the Utility Services Coordinator in Finance and our City Planner for Neighborhood and Community Services. And we are having our second round of interviews for our Neighborhood and Community Services Director, as well as our Assistant City Clerk. And that concludes my report. If there are no questions for myself or a member of our team. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we'll move on to comments by the governing body. We'll start with Commissioner Skidmore.
Well, I just want to start off, today's my wife's birthday, so I want to wish her a happy birthday. I won't tell you what tree disease she remembers, but anyway, she's younger than me, so I'll put it that way. Don't want to forget the forum tonight at 6:30 for the candidates with school board and city commission right here in this room at 6:30. Appreciate that chamber taking that on, and they'll be able to be broadcast if you want to look at it later on their web page. And I see we got 10:29 meeting on our agenda here. I don't know if that'll be, I understand it's canceled. Is that right? Just want to clarify that.
Well, I think is it canceled?
That will be the open house here in this room for the sales tax.
That's good. All
I
right.
think the time has changed. It'll be from 5 to 7.
Okay, good, we'll do that. And last but not least, I want to congratulate Sarah Kaler on the Ernie Mosier Award that was awarded to her this last week. They don't hand those out just dilly-dally. I mean, it's an important award. I just want to say congratulations to you. So I don't know if anyone from Ottawa's ever gotten that award, so and maybe you remember, but I just want to say congratulations to you, well-earned award, and I'm sure everybody appreciates what work you've done here in this panel.
Commissioner Crowley,
I have no comment.
Commissioner Kaler.
No, I don't have any comment today.
Okay, Mayor Pro Tem Clayton.
I'll reiterate the congratulations on the E.A. Mosier Award. And then the League of Kansas Municipalities, we had the opportunity to go and meet with other cities. And as has been mentioned before, it's always great to hear issues and things that we are facing that it seems like everyone is facing. Because sometimes I personally feel that I get almost so caught up in the issues we have in Ottawa and feeling like we're the only ones in the world who have them, and how do we solve them, and what should we do, and like spending a lot of energy and time on that. And it's kind of refreshing, I guess, to hear that other communities have the exact same problems. And so we're not alone in that. We're all kind of working towards solutions, and that's great. So that was a great time. I want to plug October 25th, next Saturday, is the Boo Bash downtown for bring your kids out or adults, whoever. There is a costume contest. I don't know if there's age ranges, but if Commissioner Skidmore wants to come out, he can try to win an award or something, and then walk downtown and get some candy and stuff picked up as well. So.
And I have no comment. We will move on to announcements. October 15th, City Commission meeting at 10 a.m. at City Hall. October 22nd, City Commission meeting at 4 p.m. at City Hall. And the 29th, it sounds like we will be having an open house. We will be asking for an executive session today.
Madam Mayor,
Commissioner.
I move that the commission recesses into executive session to discuss the hiring of an employee and employee evaluation pursuant to the non-elected personnel matter exception KSA 75-4319 B1. The meeting will resume in this room. Give me just 1 second to do that. I'm going to say at 11:30. And we're going to take just a couple-minute break before we start so that
Hit the head.
yes, we can take a couple-minute break.
I'll second.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. We will recess.